I hope all of you are staying safe and practicing healthy habits. I came up with a term this week that horrified me. I've been seeing how the incidence of domestic violence has been going up. And for every percentage point unemployment goes up, opiate addiction goes up 3.5%. Now, I have no idea if that's going to hold in the pandemic, because unemployment in the United States literally went from 3% to somewhere between 20 to 25%. That's horrifying. And I came up with the term pandemic squared because this pandemic and the response to the pandemic is going to cause the second one that's going to be worse, which is a mental health pandemic. That the incidence of anxiety, depression, trauma, addictions, and complex grief are going to go way up unless we get very serious on how to prevent it. And I wrote, it's personal, because of those of you that follow me know it is personal. That, with my father dying and his memorial services on Sunday, I know it's not just affecting me. It's affecting so many people with the loss of a loved one, with the loss of their job, with the loss of certainty, which actually was an illusion. And we need to create a revolution. And when I wrote The End of Mental Illness, I was so proud of it, because it's raw, it's real, it's what I've lived and believed for many years. I didn't know how prophetic it would be, because what I wrote is the end of mental illness will begin with a revolution in brain health. And now, as we've been pummeled by this pandemic, what we've learned is that the risk factors that put you at risk for anxiety, depression, ADHD, addictions, and dementia are the same risk factors that make you more likely to die from this virus, or quite frankly, any aggressive pathogen. That the US is 4% of the world's population, 4. We have a third of the cases. Our mortality is not good. Why? Because as a society, we are sick. And if we want to prevent the second wave, you have to strengthen your immune system. Yeah, you have to be smart and not, just go and expose yourself for no good reason. You have to be smart and thoughtful. In all of the interviews that I've done, I talk about some anxiety is good. sorry, some anxiety is good. People who have low levels of anxiety die the earliest from accidents and preventable illnesses. So I want you to have some anxiety. You know, I used to think my job as a psychiatrist was to lower your anxiety. And then after practicing for a couple of years, I'm like, not for everybody. Some people needed to raise their anxiety so they would do the right things. And based on our brain imaging work, what I discovered is when your brain works right, you work right. And when your brain is troubled, you have trouble in your life. Your brain is a physical organ that needs to be tended to. Some of you know I was in Justin Bieber's docuseries called Seasons, which I like very much. And I've been his doctor for a number of years. And he wasn't always cooperative. And then one day last year, he came into my office and he said, my brain's an organ like my heart is an organ. If you told me I had heart disease, I'd do everything you said. I'm going to start doing everything you say. I love that. And the idea behind the end of mental illness is your brain is an organ just like your heart. And did you know most people who seek cardiac have never had a heart attack? They are there to prevent them. I see a day soon, if you help me, where we can completely change the paradigm of psychiatry, making diagnoses based on symptom clusters with no biological data, not teaching people to fall in love with their brain and treat it better, where we break that paradigm and we come up with a completely new paradigm that gets us physically and mentally and socially and spiritually healthy. And that's how we're going to end mental illness. And so if we just look at the risk factors for mortality with COVID, they're virtually the same as the Bright Minds risk factors that I talk about in the end of mental illness. Hypertension, that's blood flow. So Bright Minds is B is for blood flow. Hypertension, or quite frankly, any form of heart disease, is a risk factor to lower blood flow to your brain, and low blood flow to the brain is the number one brain imaging predictor of Alzheimer's disease. The R is retirement and aging. When you stop learning, your brain starts dying. It's one of the reasons I think I write and do research and see patients. And, you know, when my dad died last Tuesday, he actually woke up feeling great and was on the phone all morning until he passed away working. In fact, it was funny. He writes the ads for Super A. That's the grocery chain that he started. And in the 90s, writing the ad, and he's fighting with my brother. And he did one of the things my dad does a lot. I'm the boss. Do what I say. But he was working to the end. And if you retire, you have to keep your mind active. And it's not golf. And it's not CNN or Fox News. It's got to be where you're working your brain. The I is inflammation, and that's what's killing people. Conditions that increase your immune system's response, like obesity and diabetes and autoimmune disorders, put you at great risk to die from COVID, but also for mental health issues. So the idea of pandemic squared, meaning this pandemic, COVID-19, plus our reaction to it, shutting down the economy where large groups of people are unemployed, the social isolation, the lack of sunshine, exercise, the chronic stress from being afraid is going to set off another pandemic. But the answer is we all have to work really hard to get healthy. The answer to diabetes is not a medicine. It's not going to be another medicine, at least to type 2 diabetes. The answer is going to be losing the weight you need to lose, eating the food you need to eat so that you eat things that serve your health rather than steal your health. So dinner tonight was awesome. Kim, who's my assistant, who's actually been working from home with me, is a great cook. I'm so pleased. So she made spaghetti, squash, meatball pasta. Oh, it was so good. There's literally no suffering in getting well. And I know you go, but I like my cookies and I like my donuts but they don't like you back. So why would you be in love with something that hurts you? I mean, that you need therapy for that. I'm not going to be in bad relationships anymore. I mean, I can go on, but the end of mental illness really lays this out. So if we want to prevent pandemic squared, if we want to prevent pandemic squared, we have to get serious about creating a revolution in brain health, which, as I've learned, it's also a revolution in gut health. It's a revolution in cardiovascular health. It's a revolution in optimizing the function of your kidneys, of your liver, and none of it is hard. And I just want to leave you with this one idea. So the revolution, if you want to help me, it starts by you living the message. Some of you know I was one of the creators of the Daniel Plan, the program from Saddleback Church about 10 years ago. Actually getting close to 10 years exactly. Pastor Rick Warren called me and he said, and you know Pastor Warren, he's the author of our generation's best-selling book, The Purpose-Driven Life. He's the senior pastor at Saddleback Church that has 19, 20 campuses around the world. And he said, I'm fat, my church is fat, will you help me? And together with my friend Mark Hyman, we created the Daniel Plan, which was a program to get the world healthy through churches. So I know we can do this. The first week, 15,000 people signed up. The first year, they lost 250,000 pounds. But that was only the side effect, that they reported better mood, better memories, better energy, less stress, better sleep, fewer medications. It was stunning. And then subsequently, Rick and Mark and I wrote a #1 New York Times bestselling book, The Daniel Plan, and thousands of churches have done this program. So I know we can create a revolution. But like with the Daniel Plan, the one thing I learned is it starts with you. It starts by you adopting these principles. If I want to get my mind right, I have to get my brain right. If I have to get my brain right, I have to get my body right, which means I have to eat right, exercise, take simple supplements, multiple vitamin, fish oil, vitamin D. I think all of us during this time should be taking 5,000 units of vitamin D. If your level's low, 10,000. There's a connection between low levels of vitamin D and mortality from COVID-19. So you have to live the message, and then you have to give it to someone else, because it's in the act of giving that you create your own support group, making it more likely you're going to stay on the program. Because if you don't stay on the program, you can't give it. I'll just tell you this one story. And it's funny, you know, whenever I say my dad was brutal, some of my nieces and nephews get upset with me because they just saw him as a great grandfather, which he was. He was a great grandfather, and he was brutal sometimes as a father. And I've already written the eulogy I'm going to give. It's in the form of a poem. I really like it a lot. And it's honest, and it's called Good Grief. Because you can't grieve properly if you're not honest. Your brain will know things aren't right. Anyways, and you've heard me say this. When I told him I wanted to be a psychiatrist, he asked me why I didn't want to be a real doctor, why I wanted to be a nut doctor and hang out with nuts all day long. And years later, he came to respect what I do and sent me a lot of patients. So apparently he knew a lot of nuts as well. But after I started looking at the brain in 1991, and I realized it was an organ, like your heart's an organ, and you have to work to optimize the brain, I got physically healthy because I didn't want a smaller brain. And then I started bothering him. I'm like, come on, Pop, we got to get healthy. You need to lose some weight. I want you to eat better. And he's like, oh, great. The nut doctor is now a health nut. And he was sort of rude about that. And, but it was 5 years ago where he got really sick. He had mold in his house, and then a chronic cough, and then developed a heart arrhythmia, and then heart failure. And he said, I'm sick of being sick. What do you want me to do? And he did everything I asked. Lost 40 pounds, started driving again, went to work every day, played golf. I mean, he just got healthy. Why did he do that? And why did he ask me? Because I lived the message. If you don't live the message, you suck as a messenger. And I know people don't want to hear that, but it's true. If you don't live the message of your life, no one's going to believe you. And so if you go on this journey with me to end mental illness, it starts by you creating a revolution in yourself for brain health. And I love how one of my patients, Nancy, She was 80 years old and picked up my book, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, in a used bookstore in Oxford, England, and for 50 cents, she said. And she said, oh, there's so many things to do, so I just did one thing at a time. And that's sort of the secret. So she just started drinking more water and had better energy. Then she started taking simple supplements and had more energy. And started eating right and had more energy. And then started exercising, dancing, playing table tennis. Today, I did an interview with the United States of America Table Tennis Association. I was so excited. Table tennis is a great game. We talked about how it's good for your brain. And then she started new learning. She started playing the guitar and learning a new language. And when I met her, she was learning 3 of them. And over a year, she lost 70 pounds. And she said, now she's 83, when I met her, she said, I just never believed at this time in my life I could feel so good. And then what she did is she taught her children, because they're like, Mom, what's the difference? She taught her kids, and then she taught her grandkids. That's how you create this revolution. So we can avoid pandemic squared. We can avoid the second way, because this thing's personal to all of us. All right. Have a great night.